The twin suns burned over the desert outpost, making the metal walls shine like fire. The human mechanic Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead, his hands black with grease and dust. He had been working all morning on the strange ship that stood alone near the landing ground. It was not human, and it was not fully alien either. Its shape was too smooth, too perfect, like something grown instead of built. Every time Ethan touched the hull, it seemed to pulse under his fingers like living skin. That was why he had stopped. That was why his heart beat heavy in his chest. But before he could warn anyone, the sound of horns echoed across the sand. Tall banners appeared on the horizon, followed by shining warriors on long-legged beasts. At their center rode a woman with silver armor and glowing eyes, the Alien Empress. Her face was calm, proud, untouched by the heat. To her people she was a goddess made flesh, ruler of stars. She had come to inspect the human outpost, to test their machines. And now her gaze fell on the strange ship. The ship that Ethan had already begun to fear. She dismounted with grace, her guards forming a circle. One of them pointed at the silent ship and said it looked like treasure. The Empress's lips curved in a smile, and she stepped toward the dark entrance. That was when Ethan's fear broke into action. He dropped his tools, ran forward, and shouted with all the strength in his lungs, "Don't enter the ship." The Empress stopped, one foot on the ramp, her head turning slowly. Her golden crown caught the sunlight, and her voice was colder than ice. "Did a human just command me?" The guards' hands reached for their weapons, and the air grew heavy. Ethan's breath came fast. But he didn't back away. His voice cracked, but his eyes stayed firm. "You can't go inside. It isn't safe. It isn't what you think it is." Laughter rose from the alien soldiers, sharp and cruel. To them he was nothing but a grease-covered worker, a human with no rank, no place to speak before royalty. But Ethan didn't care about pride or punishment. He cared about the humming sound that still echoed in his bones, the sound that came from deep inside the ship. It was faint now, but he knew it would grow louder. He had touched its walls and felt them breathing. The Empress narrowed her glowing eyes at him. "You dare to speak of danger to me? To my kind?" Ethan shook his head, his voice lower, almost a whisper. "I don't care who you are. This ship doesn't belong to you or to me. It belongs to itself." Her lips curled in anger, but before she could answer, the ground trembled. Dust lifted in waves around their feet, and the strange ship groaned. It was a sound no machine should make, a sound too close to a wounded animal. The guards stopped laughing, their hands frozen on their blades. The Empress looked back at the ship with a flicker of doubt, but her pride was stronger than her fear. She turned to Ethan, her voice sharp as steel. "You humans are always afraid, always imagining monsters in shadows. This is just an old ship, nothing more." Ethan's heart pounded as he stepped closer, his eyes locked on the dark ramp. "No," he said, his throat dry. "I've been inside, I've seen enough. That thing is waiting for someone to enter. It wants you to step inside." The Empress tilted her head, as if considering his madness. Her guards muttered among themselves. One finally sneered and said, "If you are so sure, let us see." He placed a hand on his weapon and moved toward the entrance. Ethan opened his mouth to stop him again, but it was too late. The guard disappeared into the darkness of the ship. For a moment silence hung over the desert. The suns burned above, the wind stopped. Even the sand seemed to wait. Ethan's palms were wet with sweat. His breath held. The Empress crossed her arms, pretending she felt no fear, but then the silence broke. A scream ripped out of the ship. Sharp and short, it was the guard's voice, twisted with pain. Then nothing, just silence again. The Empress's eyes widened a fraction, and the other guards shifted uneasily. Ethan took one step closer and said with a low, trembling voice, "Now do you believe me?" The Empress didn't answer. She turned slowly to look at the dark entrance again. Inside, something moved, something unseen, but heavy. The ramp creaked as if under the weight of invisible feet. The ship seemed to breathe deeper now, louder, alive, and Ethan felt the truth sinking into his bones. This was not a machine, not a vessel, it was something else, something hungry. The Empress's pride kept her standing tall, but for the first time in her life, a shadow of fear crossed her face. The desert wind blew hard, carrying dust across the landing ground. The twin suns burned high, but no one cared about the heat anymore. All eyes were on the ship, the dark entrance where the guard had vanished. One moment he had walked in, proud and unafraid. The next, his scream had cut the air like a knife, And now there was only silence. The Alien Empress stood tall, her silver armor shining under the suns. Her glowing eyes were fixed on the ramp, calm but sharp. Her guards shifted uneasily, their pride shaken. No soldier wanted to admit fear, yet none dared to follow their brother inside. Ethan's voice broke the silence, low but firm. You see now, don't you? It's not a ship. It's alive. The Empress turned her head, slowly, her gaze locking onto him. For a long moment she said nothing. Her pride battled against the truth in her mind. She was a ruler of 1,000 worlds, a conqueror feared across galaxies. How could she admit danger in front of a human mechanic? Her lips curled into a cold smile. One scream means nothing. Soldiers die. Machines eat the careless. But her voice, though sharp, held the faintest tremor. Ethan shook his head, sweat dripping down his temple. You didn't hear what I did before you arrived. It hums, it breathes. It waits. Your soldier didn't die by accident. It wanted him. It wants more. The Empress narrowed her eyes. Her guards muttered behind her, torn between loyalty and fear. Finally, she raised her hand, silencing them all. I will not be made a fool by a frightened human, she said. And with that, she took a step toward the ramp. Ethan's heart dropped. He ran forward, planting himself in her path. Don't! If you go in, you'll never come out. The guards drew their weapons instantly, blades glowing with alien light. One hissed, touch her again, human, and you die. But the Empress raised her hand, stopping them. She tilted her head, studying Ethan. Her eyes glowed brighter, filled with curiosity and fire. Why does a mechanic risk death to stop me? You could let me walk in and the danger would be mine, yet here you stand. Why? Ethan's throat tightened. He looked at her, not as a ruler, not as an empress, but as a person standing on the edge of something she didn't understand. Because, he whispered, I don't want to see anyone else swallowed by it. I've been inside. I know what waits in there, even if I can't explain it. It isn't a place. It's a trap. The Empress studied him for a long, silent moment. Her pride told her to laugh, to call him weak, but something in his eyes, raw, honest fear, made her hesitate. Still, she could not show weakness before her guards. She raised her chin, her voice firm. If you claim knowledge of this thing, then you will prove it. You will go back inside, human, and show me what you fear. Ethan froze, his stomach twisting. He hadn't wanted to step foot inside ever again. The memory of the breathing wall still burned in his mind. But the Empress's order left him no choice. If he refused, he would die here, cut down by her soldiers. If he obeyed, he might die inside the ship. Either way, his fate was sealed. He swallowed hard, his voice hoarse. You don't understand. It listens. It changes when someone enters. If I go back in, it will wake more fully. That's what it wants. The Empress leaned closer, her silver crown gleaming in the sunlight. Then perhaps it is time we see what it becomes, she whispered. Her soldiers shifted, their armor clinking. One of them stepped forward, eager to defend her honor. Let us drag him in, my Empress. If he lies, the ship will eat him. If he speaks truth, then we will know its nature. The Empress considered the words, her eyes never leaving Ethan. The silence stretched long until finally she nodded. Her command was simple, sharp as a blade. Bring him! 2 guards seized Ethan by the arms. Their grip like iron, he struggled, but he was no match for their strength. The ramp loomed closer, dark and waiting. The air grew colder with every step. Ethan's chest heaved, his voice rising in desperation. You're making a mistake. It won't stop with me. If I go in, it will come for you too. The Empress walked behind them, her expression unreadable. She spoke softly, almost to herself. Perhaps this is no mistake. Perhaps this is fate. At the threshold, the air shifted, heavy and strange. The ramp seemed to breathe in as though inhaling him. The guards pushed Ethan forward, and the shadows swallowed his feet. He shuddered, his skin crawling with 1,000 invisible hands. The hum grew louder now. Vibrating in his bones, it was no longer faint. No longer hidden, it was awake. From deep inside, a glow began to rise, faint and pulsing, like the heartbeat of some vast creature hidden in the dark. The Empress stopped at the edge, her glowing eyes fixed on the sight. For the first time, doubt touched her proud face. Ethan turned his head back toward her. His voice was not a scream now, but a promise. If I vanish in there, if it takes me, it will not end with me. It will come for all of you. And then, the ship answered. A sound rolled out from its depths. Not a hum, not a groan, but a voice, low and echoing. It spoke in no language they knew, yet every ear understood, every heart froze. It said only one word. Hungry. The guards recoiled, their faces pale. The Empress's mask of pride cracked for just an instant, and Ethan, caught at the edge of shadow and light, knew this was only the beginning. The word echoed in the air like thunder. Hungry. It was not a voice made by throat or tongue. It came from the walls, from the shadows. From everywhere at once, every soldier froze, their armor rattling as if the word had shaken their bones. The guards still held Ethan, but their grip was weaker now. Their glowing eyes darted back and forth. Uncertain, Ethan took the chance to speak. His voice sharp. You see now. You all heard it. This ship is alive. But instead of answering him, the Empress stepped closer to the ramp. Her silver boots touched the edge. Her long cloak brushing the sand, her face remained calm. But her eyes betrayed something else. Curiosity mixed with the faintest crack of fear. She raised her chin, her voice strong. If this creature is alive, then I will face it. If it eats worlds, then let it try to eat me, the soldiers murmured. Some horrified, some proud of her words, but Ethan's stomach twisted. He had seen too much to think her bravery was enough. No, he whispered, you don't understand. It doesn't fight, it doesn't duel, it consumes, it feeds on fear, on life, on anything that dares step inside. The Empress ignored him. She gave the order with one sharp motion. Release him. He will walk with me, and he will show me what he claims to know. The guards hesitated, but obeyed, letting Ethan's arms go. His wrists throbbed where their claws had dug in, but he barely noticed. The ramp stretched upward like the open mouth of a beast. The hum within grew louder with every step. It was no longer faint. It was a steady pulse, like a heartbeat. Ethan and the Empress ascended side by side. Behind them, 2 guards followed. Though their steps trembled, the rest stayed outside. Their faces pale beneath their helmets. The air changed the moment Ethan crossed the threshold. It was colder, thicker, filled with a strange taste. Like metal mixed with something sweet and rotten, the walls glistened. Smooth yet wet as if alive in the floor, it pulsed softly like flesh under their boots. The Empress's expression stayed unreadable. Her glowing eyes scanned the corridor, taking in every detail. But her hand tightened on the hilt of her blade. She would not admit fear, yet it leaked through her movements. A whisper ran along the walls. It was not words, but a sound like breath in the dark. The guards flinched. One of them muttered, "This is no ship, my Empress. It is a womb." "A nest." The Empress silenced him with a glare. But even she could not deny the truth in his words. Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry. He pointed down the corridor where the glow deepened. "That's where it took your man. That's where it drags the living." The Empress gave a nod, her voice steady but low. "Then we follow. If it thinks it can take my soldiers without answer, it will learn its mistake." They walked deeper. Every step brought new horrors. The walls twitched when touched, pulling away like muscle. The floor released faint vibrations as if beating with a hidden heart, and the air carried whispers, sometimes laughter, sometimes screams, voices of people who could not be here. Voices of the dead. Ethan clenched his fists, his breath quick and shallow. He remembered the last time he was here, how the walls had opened like jaws, how the shadows had stretched toward him. He had barely escaped, stumbling into the desert half-mad with fear. And now he was back with no chance of escape. The glow ahead grew brighter. It was not light, not truly, it was more like a shimmer, a pulse of energy that throbbed in rhythm. As they reached the chamber, the sight froze them all. The missing soldier hung from the wall, alive but barely. Black tendrils pierced his skin, holding him like a puppet. His mouth was open in a silent scream. His eyes glowed faintly, drained of their natural light, and from his chest something pulsed, feeding into the wall itself. One of the guards cried out in rage, rushing forward. But the floor split beneath him, opening like a mouth. He had no time to scream before it swallowed him whole. The ground sealed shut, leaving no trace. The Empress staggered back, her composure breaking for the first time. Her face tightened, her pride cracking under the horror. Ethan grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the pulsing wall. "Do you see now? It doesn't just kill, it feeds. It's building something." The chamber itself seemed to breathe faster. The glow brightened, the hum louder. The soldier on the wall twitched, his voice breaking free at last. "Hungry, hungry," he whispered, his words twisted, as if he was no longer himself but part of the ship. The Empress's blade hissed as she drew it, the silver edge glowing. She slashed the tendrils. tearing the soldier free, but instead of falling, his body dissolved into dust. The dust swirled upward, absorbed by the walls like smoke. The ship shuddered, its voice rising. More, it growled. Deeper than before, the walls shifted, curling inward, blocking the exit. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. They were trapped. The Empress raised her blade, her armor gleaming in the glow. Her pride returned, but now it was mixed with fury. She turned to Ethan, her voice sharp. "If you led me here to die, human, I will make sure you suffer first." Ethan met her gaze. His eyes wide, his voice steady despite the terror. "I didn't lead you. I warned you. And now if you want to live, you'll listen to me." The ship roared, its voice shaking the chamber. Tendrils erupted from the walls. Reaching, grabbing, the Empress slashed them down, her movements swift and deadly. But for every tendril she cut, 3 more grew. The guards screamed as the floor cracked beneath them, and Ethan realized with cold horror, the ship was not defending itself, it was playing with them. The silence inside the alien warship was worse than any scream. The crew of the Empress stood frozen, their eyes moving from the strange pulsing walls to the silent human. Their queen had entered the ship against his warning, and now even she looked uneasy. The mechanic placed his hand against the glowing wall. The ship's surface rippled like water, but also hummed like a heartbeat. He pulled his hand back quickly. "It's alive," he whispered. The alien warriors gasped. Alive, a ship? How could this fragile human say such a thing? But then the evidence came. A low vibration rolled through the floor. The walls shifted and reshaped, like muscles stretching. A sound filled the chamber. A deep growl that was not from an engine, but from something that felt hungry. The Empress raised her spear, her sharp voice breaking the tension. "Stay calm. This is just old alien technology. Nothing more," she declared. But her tone betrayed her. Her fingers trembled around the weapon. The human mechanic shook his head. "No, it's not technology. It's a predator, and we're inside its stomach." A sudden slam echoed. The entrance they had come through sealed shut. The warriors rushed to it, striking it with blades, with plasma rifles, with strength. But the surface swallowed their weapons and spit them back twisted. The ship was not just alive, it was aware. The Empress turned sharply to the mechanic, anger rising in her eyes. "You knew. You told me not to enter. Why?" she demanded. Her voice shook, not with authority, but with fear. The mechanic met her gaze steadily. "Because humans already lost to one of these," he said. The crew froze. Lost? The humans who had been underestimated, who had been mocked as weak? He went on. "Long before your empire reached this planet, one of these ships came to Earth. We didn't call it a ship. We called it a beast. It ate entire cities, fed on the people. We fought it for years, but in the end, only fire could kill it. When I saw the markings on this hull, I knew. This one is the same kind." Gasps filled the chamber. The alien warriors looked at the Empress with wide, terrified eyes. Had she led them into a trap without knowing? The Empress clenched her jaw, furious at herself but unwilling to admit it. "We are not humans. We are stronger. We can kill it," she declared. But before anyone could argue, the floor itself shifted. The ground beneath their feet turned soft and sticky. Warriors screamed as they sank ankle-deep, then knee-deep. The walls opened, revealing rows of sharp, wet teeth-like structures. The ship growled louder, echoing through their skulls. It was waking fully, and it was hungry. The mechanic acted fast. He pulled a metal cylinder from his belt, slammed it into the ground. A blast of fire erupted, scorching the living floor. The ship roared in pain, the walls quivering violently. The crew stumbled free from the sticky grip, saved only because of the fire. The Empress stared at the human, her disbelief breaking into something else, respect. He had prepared for this, he had brought fire. She realized then that he had not been trying to defy her. He had been trying to protect them all. Still, her pride forced her words. "You dare use fire inside my ship without my command?" she hissed. But her eyes betrayed her voice. They were filled with fear and perhaps a small flicker of trust. The mechanic did not flinch. "You want to live? Then listen to me. This thing doesn't fear your blades or your strength. It only fears what humans used, flame. If we don't burn it from the inside, none of us leave alive." The warriors looked between their queen and the human. A war raged inside the Empress. Her pride screamed to reject him, but her survival whispered to obey. And for the first time, she lowered her spear. Fine, she said through clenched teeth. Then show us, human. Show us how to kill a god beast. The mechanic nodded grimly. He opened his satchel, revealing more cylinders. Fire charges. Human-made, the alien warriors gathered around, staring at the small devices with unease. Such simple tools, yet so deadly to the living ship. The Empress stepped closer to him, her voice quiet. If you betray me, I'll burn you myself, the mechanic smirked. A small spark of humor in his eyes despite the danger. If I betray you, we'll all be dead anyway, he replied. The floor rumbled again. The ship was not going to wait. The chamber darkened as the glowing walls pulsed red like blood. The growls became screams, deep and furious. The predator was awake, and now it knew there was prey inside. The mechanic stood tall, holding the fire charges. The Empress raised her weapon. Her eyes locked on him for the first time. They were united by one truth. If they did not fight together, they would all be devoured. The chamber shook violently. The walls opened into a gaping throat ahead. The ship was ready to feast. The mechanic lit the first charge, flames bursting in his hand. Time to teach your Empress, he muttered. Why humans say don't enter the ship. The first blast of flame lit the chamber in a furious glow. The living walls shrieked, a sound that rattled bones and made even the Empress stagger back. The mechanic hurled the burning charge into the gaping throat ahead. The moment it landed, the throat convulsed. Walls squeezing like muscles, a deep, animal scream rolled through the ship, louder than thunder. The alien warriors clutched their heads, their weapons trembling in their hands. Some had never faced real fear until this moment. The Empress barked at them, her voice cutting through their panic. Stand firm. Do not disgrace me, she roared. But even she glanced at the human with unease. His fire had done more in 1 second than her soldiers had in hours. The throat ahead rippled, walls folding inward like teeth ready to crush them. The mechanic pointed sharply. Stay away from the throat, it'll close and swallow you whole. Follow me! His voice was firm, commanding. The alien warriors hesitated, then obeyed. Even their queen followed, though her pride burned hotter than the flames. The floor pulsed wetly under their boots. Every step sank slightly as if walking on flesh. The air grew hot, filled with smoke and the stench of burning meat. The mechanic dropped another charge. Another wave of flame roared. The ship screamed again, shaking the chamber so violently that weapons clattered to the floor. One warrior fell into a pool of thick liquid. Before anyone could pull him up, the liquid hardened around him like stone. His scream cut off as the wall swallowed him whole. The others froze in horror. The Empress forced herself not to look, but her hand tightened on her spear. The mechanic snapped at them. Don't freeze. Move or you'll be next. The aliens obeyed again, their fear bending to his command for the first time. The Empress noticed it. Her soldiers listened to him faster than they listened to her. That thought stung worse than the fire. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber. The ceiling pulsed with glowing red veins. The floor heaved like a lung. Every breath of the ship echoing through their chests, and in the center, suspended by tendrils, hung a massive heart. It throbbed with light, each beat shaking the chamber. The Empress's eyes widened. A god's heart, she whispered. The mechanic's voice was steady. That's no god, that's the core, we burn it. The whole thing dies. The Empress raised her chin, her pride refusing to falter. And if we fail? The human looked at her coldly. Then it digests us. And your empire never hears from you again, the warriors muttered prayers. Even the Empress felt her chest tighten. But she would not admit fear. She nodded once curtly. Then strike. The mechanic pulled out the last of his fire charges. There weren't many left. Listen carefully, he said. We throw everything we've got at the heart. But once it starts burning, this place will try to crush us alive if we want to make it out. We'll have to fight through its fury. The Empress's jaw tightened. Then we fight, she said, but her eyes betrayed something else. A flicker of trust in the human who stood before her. The mechanic threw the first charge at the heart. The explosion rocked the chamber. Fire spreading across the veins, the ship shrieked, the walls convulsing violently. The floor split open, revealing rows of fleshy spikes. Warriors leapt aside as the ground itself tried to impale them. The Empress spun her spear, cutting through a whipping tendril. Green blood sprayed across her armor, burning like acid. She hissed in pain but pressed forward. The mechanic shoved another charge into the heart. Fire erupted again. The heart throbbed faster, its glow turning wild. The ship went mad. Walls slammed shut. Warriors were crushed like insects. The air turned thick with smoke and screams. The Empress fought like a storm, her spear flashing, her roar carrying above the chaos. But each time the ship tried to close on them, it was the mechanic's fire that forced it open. At one point, a tendril wrapped around the Empress's arm. Pulling her toward the wall, her warriors struggled to free her. The mechanic didn't hesitate. He plunged a fire charge into the tendril. Flame burst, severing it in an instant. The Empress stumbled free, staring at him with wide eyes. She had never been saved by anyone, not even by her own guards. And yet here she was, alive because of him. Why? She asked through clenched teeth. The mechanic, panting, sweat running down his face, looked at her. Because if you die, your people panic. If they panic, we all die. I'm not here to be your enemy. I'm here to make sure someone walks out of this. Her chest tightened at his words. She wanted to call him arrogant. She wanted to remind him she was Empress. But she said nothing because in that moment, she understood. This fragile human held more power over their survival than her crown ever could. The heart cracked, fire splitting it open. Light poured from within, blinding and furious. The ship screamed a final time, louder than the storm of battle. The mechanic grabbed the Empress's wrist. We move. Now, the chamber collapsed behind them. Fire racing through every vein. Warriors scrambled. Some cut down by closing walls. The Empress and the mechanic ran side by side. For the first time, equals in the face of death. And as the ship roared around them, the Empress whispered to herself, "Perhaps the gods did not send this beast to test me. Perhaps they sent it to show me the truth of humans." The walls shook as the fire spread deeper into the ship. Every corridor groaned like the ribs of a dying beast. Flames raced along the pulsing veins, spilling smoke that choked the air. The warriors stumbled, their eyes wide with terror. For the first time, they no longer looked to their Empress for strength. They looked to the human mechanic. He moved fast, pushing through collapsing tunnels, his eyes sharp. "Stay close. If you fall behind, the ship will eat you alive," he barked. The warriors obeyed, their boots pounding behind him. The Empress hated the sight. Her people, her soldiers, listened to him faster than they ever listened to her, but she could not deny it. Without him, they would already be dead. The tunnel ahead split into two paths. The mechanic stopped, scanning the walls. The ship's pulsing light was fading in one tunnel, burning brighter in the other. "Left leads to the outer shell. Right goes to the heart's backup chamber," he said quickly. "We go left or we won't make it out." The Empress raised her chin. "My warriors will not flee like cowards. We finish what we started." Before she could finish, the mechanic snapped back. "If you go right, you all die. Your choice, Empress." Her eyes narrowed, but the flames were already closing in. She spat a curse under her breath and motioned left. "Move, before I regret listening to you." The warriors rushed into the left tunnel, but not all of them followed. 3 stayed behind, whispering to each other. Their eyes burned with anger. One hissed, "He makes us look weak. He commands us like we are his pets," another growled. "No human should speak to the Empress like that." "This is blasphemy." The mechanic noticed them lagging but pressed forward. He had no time for pride-driven fools, but their whispers followed him like knives. The tunnel narrowed, smoke thickening. Every breath felt like swallowing fire. The mechanic coughed, wiping sweat from his face. Behind him, the Empress staggered. Her golden armor was scorched. Her skin blistered where acid blood had burned her. But her eyes still burned with defiance. She would not fall, not while her soldiers were watching. They burst into a wider chamber. The walls here were already tearing apart from the fire. Chunks of flesh dropped from the ceiling. Splattering on the floor, the mechanic scanned the chamber. "There, an opening to the outside." He pointed to a gash of light where the fire had split the shell. But before they could run, one of the warriors shoved him from behind. The mechanic stumbled, barely catching himself. He turned sharply. "What the hell was that?" The warrior's face twisted with rage. "You shame our Empress. You order us like dogs. We do not need you anymore." The Empress's eyes widened. "Stand down," she snapped. But the warrior did not listen. Another joined him, spear raised. "This human is a danger, Empress. Let us end him now, before his fire burns us all." The mechanic raised his hands, his voice low and sharp. "You kill me, and none of you make it out of here alive." His eyes locked on the Empress. "You know it's true." The Empress clenched her jaw. Torn, her pride screamed to let her warrior strike. But the fire shaking the chamber reminded her of the truth. The mechanic had saved her life more than once. The warrior lunged, his spear aimed at the human's chest. The Empress's spear moved faster. With one clean strike, she slammed it across the warrior's chest. He crashed to the ground, gasping, blood spreading beneath him. The chamber fell silent, the fire crackling around them. The Empress glared at the others, her voice cold as steel. Anyone else who questions him? Questions me? The warriors lowered their heads, fear and shame heavy in their eyes. The mechanic stared at her, stunned. She had chosen him over her own blood for the first time. He saw her not as a queen full of arrogance, but as a leader willing to sacrifice her pride for survival. Why? He asked quietly. The Empress turned her head, her voice low but sharp. Because you were right, without you we die, and I will not let this ship claim me. They rushed toward the light, the sound of fire roaring behind them. The mechanic led the way, tossing his last charges to clear the collapsing tunnels. Each blast shook the walls, each scream of the ship grew weaker. At last, they burst through the gash in the shell. Blinding daylight hit their faces. The cold air rushed into their lungs. For a moment it felt like freedom. But the mechanic froze, his eyes wide. The sky above was not empty. Dozens of smaller living ships swam through the air like predators, and every one of them turned toward the broken shell, their glowing eyes fixing on the survivors. The Empress followed his gaze, her hand tightened on her spear. They are coming, she whispered. The mechanic's jaw clenched. This isn't over. It's only getting worse, Contineu.